So whenever we're discussing parallel lines, or whenever you see something that says this is a parallel line in the EST or SAT or the ACT, parallel lines is an indirect way of telling you something regarding the slope. What do I mean by that? So whenever you read the word parallel line, you think of slopes right away. Why? Because parallel lines have equal slopes. Parallel lines have equal slopes. We said earlier in the slope is the measure of the steepness of the line. So if I have two lines that are parallel to each other, this means that they're both steeped the same exact measure, which means that their slopes are equal. So again, if I said something like, for example, or if in the question it says something like a line that is parallel to y equals negative half x plus 3. And then there's the remaining of the question, whatever it may be. Now, what do you get out of that? Whenever you see parallel, you think of slopes and you think of equal slopes. So it's an indirect way of giving you the slope. Just look at the equation, take this slope, and this is the slope that you're talking about. So the line that the other line that's parallel to this one has the same slope as this one, which is negative half. Type. So to put it in a form of a graph, if this line has a slope of 3, the parallel line has a slope of 3 as well. So that's regarding the parallel lines. Now, about the perpendicular lines, we're still thinking of slope as well. So whenever they discuss perpendicular lines, we think of slopes still. But what about the slopes exactly? It's something that we call negative reciprocal. What do I mean by that? So imagine if this is an xy axis and there's this line and then there's another line that's perpendicular on it right there. Imagine that this line has a slope of 3. So what's the slope of the other line that's perpendicular on it? The word reciprocal means to flip the fraction. So for example, if I have 2, the reciprocal of 2 is 1 over 2. That's the reciprocal. The reciprocal of, for example, 2 over 3 is 3 over 2. But when I say a negative reciprocal, means we change the sign. So for example, if one of them was negative 2, the other one would become positive 1 over 2. If one line was 2 over 3, the slope of it was 2 over 3, the other line would have a slope of negative 3 over 2. So for example, in this case, since this line has a slope of 3, التاني هيبقى negative 1 over 3. We flip and then we change the sign. So instead of 3, it became 1 over 3. And then we changed the sign. It became negative 1 over 3. So far, any questions? Everything so far makes sense? Awesome. Type. Let's see how the questions work with this idea of how can something like that come in a question. Now, if you please head to Google Classroom right away, you'll see 3-4 parallel and perpendicular lines. These questions, they're all about parallel and perpendicular lines. They're using the slopes of the parallel and perpendicular lines. They're very similar to the questions that come in the test itself. As usual, since these are a total of 6 questions, I'll give you a total of 12 minutes to solve all 6 questions. Please make sure to finish within that time. So Google Classroom, 3-4, parallel and perpendicular lines. "12 minutes started now." Starting with the first question, which of the following equations represents a line that is parallel? And that's the keyword we were looking for. We said whenever we see parallel, we think of slopes, and we think of equal slopes to be precise. So parallel lines, I understand I'm thinking of slopes and that they are equal. Parallel to which one? Parallel to this one. This means that they share the same slope of negative half. So I know that the other line has a slope of negative half. And they say it contains the point negative 2.5. So which of the following equations has this slope and passes through this point? That's what we're trying to figure out. But when you look at the choices, they're all written in the standard form. And if you remember, the standard form is this one, ax plus by equals c. We said in order to get the slope in this form, we do negative a over b. And in order to get the y-intercept, we do c over b. So that's what we're going to do in each of the following choices. For choice A, the slope is negative 1 over this number next to the y, which is negative 2. The negatives will cross each other, which means the slope is half. So it's not the right line, because it must have a slope of negative half. Check the second one. This has a slope of negative 1 over the number next to the y, which is 2. So this one has the correct slope. And if you check the others, they don't have the same slope. So the only correct answer must be B. And that's it for question number 1. Any questions there?
بس أنا أصلا قريتها قصدي perpendicular
لا يبقى انت اخترت سي صح؟ ما اتصل.
أيوه.
لا اللي بعدها بقى هي اللي كانت مش اللي بعدها كمان. This is the one that's perpendicular. This is the only one that's perpendicular. But it's okay. At least you understand where did this come from. Yeah. Type number 2, it says which of the following equations represents a line that passes through 7 and 6 and is parallel to the x-axis? What did we say about parallel? We said parallel means equal slopes. Equal slopes to what? To this right there, which is the x-axis. What was the slope of the x-axis? If you remember, we said if we have a line that's parallel to the x-axis, يعني a horizontal line, the slope of it is 0. So this means here that the slope is 0. So what's the equation? Now think about it. Isn't the equation supposed to be y equals mx plus b? It's supposed to be in this form. If m is equals to 0, 0 multiplied by x will make it 0 as well, which then will result that y will be equals to b. So this is one good information. Whenever we have a line that's parallel to the x-axis, the equation of it is y equals something. And whenever we have a line that's parallel to the y-axis, like this one, a vertical line, the equation of it would be x equals something. Let me give you an example. So look at this line here. If it passes through this point, and let's say this point is 2 on the y, the equation of this line will be y equals 2. If you look on the other hand for this graph, the vertical line, if let's say it crosses the x-axis at 3, then the equation of this line will be x equals 3. It will not have a y in it. So since in this question it says this is a line that's parallel to the x-axis, the equation of it should be y equals a number. And since this line passes through this point, then the y must be equal to this y here, which means that the answer is y equals 6. This is the correct answer. So D is the correct answer. Does this one make sense? Hello? All good? All right, moving on. Number 3. we have this line that's now parallel to the y-axis, which is the other case that we were just discussing. So it's parallel to the y-axis, and it passes through the point -5 and 1, which means it goes here and the x ب-5, and this is the line. So the equation of it must be x equals the number, which is -5. The answer here is C. And that, by the way, means that on this line, any point you'll pick, if you pick any point, it will always have the x coordinate as -5. الx بتاعتها will always remain as -5. No matter y بكام, الx will always remain with -5. محمد, were you asking about this one ولا واحد ثاني يا حبيبي سؤال؟ Which one do you want me to repeat يا حبيبي؟
من صفر خلال ثانية واحدة يا مستر.
اللي هي number 3 صح؟ ولا number 2؟ اوكي 2. So 2.
مستر احنا ممكن نقول ان كمان y equals 7 parallel to the x.
It is parallel to the x, بس هو بيقول لي هي لازم to pass through the point 7 و 6. اللاين اللي هو y equals 7 ده الواي بتاعته هتفضل على طول ب 7، مع ان انا الواي بتاعت البوينت دي عندي ب 6 مش ب 7، صح؟
ايوه صح.
فاهم اقصد ايه؟
So
ايه الفرق ما بين اللاين y equals 6 و y equals 7؟ ان ده لاين اهو بتاع y equals 6 وده لاين بتاع y equals 7. اللاين بتاع y equals 6 ده هنا هيعدي عند البوينت 7 و 6، بس اللاين اللي 7 هيعدي عند البوينت 7 و7، بس مش هيعدي عند 7 و 6. فاهم الفكرة؟
ايوه
بس ما في حاجة. Alright, so this is 3 كمان. Number 4. It says here, these are the important ones, okay? It says here these 2 points, there's a line that passes through these 2 points and is parallel to the graph of the equation this. We solved questions very similar to this one, but instead of giving you the slope directly على طول اقول لك دول 2 points and the slope is 3, for example, they told you it's parallel to this one and you have to figure out the slope. So since it's parallel, we know they have equal slopes. Since it's parallel to this line, then we need to figure out the slope of this line. The slope of this line is negative the number, the coefficient of the x over the coefficient of the y, which means that the slope here is 2. So I have a slope of 2. Now these 2 points should be on the they should have the same line, which means if I calculated the rise of a run here, it should still get me 2. So I'll do that. I'll say b minus 2 over 5 minus -1 equals the slope, which is 2. And I'll solve this equation right here. So now b minus 2 is over. These are like terms. I can add them together. They'll become 6 equals 2. Then I'll move the 6 to the other side by multiplication. So I'll have b minus 2 equals 12. Then I'll move the -2 to the other side by addition. So I'll have b equals 14. This is it. That's the value of b. Makes sense? Are we all good? All right. Moving on to number 5. They showed me 2 lines. They told me that these 2 lines are parallel. They gave me the coordinates of one line, 2 points on that line, and they gave me 1 point on that line, and the other one is missing 1 coordinate, which is b. They want me to find b. So how do I think about this one? I'll say, again, what do I know about parallel lines? That they have equal slopes. Can I calculate any of those slopes? Apparently I can, because in line L I have all the points there. I can easily do y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1, and that would give me the slope as -3 over 2. Keep in mind this is the slope of line L. Now line M, which is another line, should have the same slope. So let's try to calculate the slope for line M, even though this is a b. So I'll do b minus -3 over -4 minus -1. Simplify this a bit more. This will become b plus 3 over -4 plus 1 is just -3. Now, since line L and M are parallel, they should have the same slope. So I can take this slope of line L and make it equal to line M, right there. Now, we said last time, if you remember, whenever we have a fraction equal a fraction, the only way we can move further is to cross multiply. So I will cross multiply. I'll have 2 in the bracket, b plus 3 equals to -3 times -3, which is 9. Now remember that this 2 is distributed on both, so it will become 2b plus 6 equals 9. Move 6 to the other side, 2b is equals to 3, which means b is equals to 3 over 2. This is the value of b. Does this one make sense? Are we all clear on this one? Awesome. محمد كله حلو. Awesome. طيب. Now these are very similar, but instead of them being parallel, they're now perpendicular. So again, I'll ask myself, what do I know about perpendicular lines? Is that their slopes are considered negative reciprocals of each other. Which means if I calculated the slope of one of them, the other one should be flipped and switched for the sign, the sign switched as well. So I'll start with the line that I have all the coordinates of, which is line T. I'll do y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. This should give me 4 over 6, which is 2 over 3. Remember, this is the slope of line T. You see, the writing process اللي أنا بعملها is not just for you to see how it works. It's not for me to explain and that's it. It's not a presentation. It's how I actually solve. This is what you should do as well. You should make sure that you're writing as many things as possible. Your mind works better. It can link things even better. So then now I'll think of line L. What's the slope of line L? I'll start calculating it. It's -2 minus 4 over a minus -1. Simplify this a bit more. This will become -6 over a plus 1. Remember, this is line L. Now, what do we know about line L and T is that, as we said earlier, they're perpendicular to each other. So line L is supposed to actually have a slope that's the negative reciprocal of T, which means it should have a slope of -3 over 2. We flipped and then we changed the sign. Now we still have the same as the previous question, two fractions equal to each other, which means we will cross multiply. So I'll have -12 equals to -3, and then I'll open a bracket and I'll leave the a plus 1. I'll then distribute the -3. Then move the -3 to this side. Then divide by -3, and that should get me the value of a as +3. Any questions there? Are we all good? Awesome. Now, since we've discussed those, we also then need to go through the ideas of the systems of equations, because we're now discussing two lines at the same time. We're saying that they're parallel, or we're saying that they're perpendicular, or whatsoever. So we're now talking about two lines that are graphed at the same time, or that are on the same xy axis. And whenever we have two lines that are on the same xy plane, this is now what we call a system of equations, because they're not one, they're two. There could be three, there could be seven. The most common ones we work on are two equations at the same time. These equations could be, sometimes, they could be both lines that are graphed at the same time. They could be both parabolas that are graphed at the same time. Or they could be a line and a parabola, for example. What's common between all systems, though, is that if we would like to look for a solution for a system, the word solution for a system means the point of intersection. These are very important. So whenever you read a question and it says like two lines, they intersect at this point, so we're now talking about the solution of the system. Or they would ask you something like, what's the solution? What's one of the solutions of this system of equations? And this means they're talking about the points of intersection. They're the same thing. So for example, if we're looking at the graphs that I randomly graphed there, this is the solution of this system. This point here and this point here, they're both solutions for this system. This one, this point and that point are solutions. Okay. So by looking at graphs, they're pretty easy to figure out the solutions. But what if two lines are parallel? What if in one case there's this line and then there's another line that are parallel, which means parallel lines, which means they'll never intersect. So if I have a system that has parallel lines, this system has no solution because they don't intersect, therefore no solution. Okay. So I want you to remember how to try and link these three things together. Whenever we see parallel lines, as we said earlier, this على طول hints into your mind equal slopes. So whenever we say that there are parallel lines, it results into equal slopes, and at the same time it results that this system has no solution. So these three things are connected. Whenever you read any of them, you remember the other two. When I say two lines have equal slopes, then they're parallel, and then this means they have no solution. If I say they have no solution, then they're parallel, then they're equal slopes, and so on. They're all the same thing. They link to each other more than you know. Please remember that. So I'll give you an example. Let's say I said that there's this line, y equals 2x minus 4, and there's another line that has the equation of kx minus y equals negative 1. And I said that this system, I said that they have no solution. And I'm asking for the value of k. Would someone care to share? If they think they know. Yes, please, go ahead.
ان عشان هما معهوش solutions
Because no
parallel.
solution, so this means they're parallel. Good. What do you know about parallel?
ان هما عندهم equal slopes.
Good. So أول حاجة أنت بتفكر فيها slopes على طول، صح؟ Equal slopes. ماشي. نعمل إيه؟
بس وانا معايا السلوب اللي موجود اللي هو 2 في اول equation.
So the first slope is 2, correct? What's the slope of the other one?
هناك بقى اعمل النيجاتيف الكوفيشنت اوف اكس اللي هي الكي اوفر النيجاتيف 1.
Good. لأن ده دي فورم ودي فورم تانية. هنا السلوب عشان أجيبه بعمل negative k over negative 1, which is k. So then this means that k is equals
2.
perfect. Thank you so much. These are the kinds of questions we're talking about. Type, what if we're now talking about a system, another system, where they actually intersect. So they intersect at this point. If we look at the graph, we can easily figure out what's this value, let's say, and this value, let's say, and khalas, this is the answer. Done. But if we don't have the graphs, and on the other hand, we have the equations, y equals 2x plus 4, and then x minus y equals -1, let's say. How do we find the solution for this system? There are two ways to do this. It's either substitution or elimination. Now, if we're working with substitution or elimination, it depends entirely on how the question itself is written. Both will work in all questions. It's just sometimes easier than the other. For example, in this one here, the substitution is definitely easier. I'll just remove this y and substitute the 2x plus 4 here. معلش, give me 1 second يا جماعة. I'm sorry. Actually, give me a couple of minutes. I'll be right back, معلش. Hello? So what I mean by that is that we take مش ال y is supposed to be equals to this. Then why not take the 2x plus 4 دي كلها على بعضها and substitute it instead of this one. So I'll remove 1 and I'll put 1. بس بدل ما بقى فيها y دلوقتي بقت كلها x's. So I'll have here x. What's wrong? So x minus, and I'll open a bracket and I'll put 2x plus 4 and then close the bracket. And then all of this is equals to -1. Now the equation is still the same, but instead of it having y's in it and x's, which are two variables, and I can't solve this, I have only one variable now, which is just the x, and I can solve this easily by distributing the negative sign. Then adding like terms together, which will then become -x minus 4 equals to -1, moving the -4 to the other side. This will give me the value of x. Whenever you have the value of x or y, you can get the other variable by substituting again into any of both equations. So I'll remove this x مثلا واحط مكانها -3. So now I'll have y equals 2, open a bracket, -3 plus 4. This will then give me y equals -6 plus 4, which then will give me y equals to -2. I have x and y, which is the point of intersection between these two lines graphed over there. Do you understand this one, or did I rush through it قوي? Give me some sort of a feedback.
فهمت.
تمام. نور. محمد ومحمد ونور.
Yes, semester.
All good?
Yes.
Right. Let's discuss elimination. In elimination, it's better to use it whenever the equations are written in a form where they are organized the same way. What do I mean by that? They ordered the same way. I mean, let's say this is one of the equations written now. The other one must have x and then y and then equal and then a number as well. So I can reform this equation into that form. I can move the 2x to this side. It will become -2x and then plus the y, and then all of this is equals to 4. Now they have the same order. How do I do the next step? I try to make sure that either the x's or the y's have the same coefficients. يا إما ال x's يا إما ال y's. مش لازم ال y بس ومش لازم ال x بس. x أو y. In this question already, ال y's have the same coefficient because ال y دي ال coefficient بتاعها is 1 ودي ال y coefficient بتاعها is 1. We don't care about the signs, we actually care more about the number itself. And then to go for the next step, you ask yourself whether these two variables or these two terms that you'd like to remove with each other, do they have the same sign or do they have different signs? If they have different signs, then I'll add. If they have the same sign, then I'll subtract. يعني لو كانوا الاثنين negative y كنت هعمل minus كل حاجة فوق minus كل حاجة تحت. If they were both positive y, I would have still subtracted everything minus everything. But because one of them is positive 1 and the other one is negative 1, when do they remove each other? If they're added. So I will add everything up with everything down. 1 plus negative 2 will become negative x. Then minus y and positive y will cross each other. And then you'll have negative 1 plus 4, which is 3. This will give me the value of x as negative 3. Once you have the value of x, just substitute in any of the equations to get the y. So I'll say negative 3 minus y equals negative 1. I'll move the negative 3 to the other side. Negative y equals 2, which means y is equals to negative 2. So now I get x and y, which are exactly the same in both forms, or in both methods, sorry. Is this clear?
ايوه كلير. طب مستر عندي سؤال.
Sure.
هو احنا لو عايزين نعرف في كام solution؟
Yes, بقى ده بالظبط البوينت اللي لسه هقولها. Now, so to sum up اللي احنا قلناه, there are 3 cases all in all, and they all depend on the number of solutions. If these, we're talking about 2 lines بس دلوقتي, okay? So 2 lines intersect, there are 3 cases that could possibly exist. It's either in the system has one solution only because they're lines, أو the system has no solution, sorry, one solution, sorry, yes, one solution only, or the system has no solution, or the system has infinite solutions or infinite solutions. These are the 3 cases اللي ممكن يطلعوا لي على lines. Again, to wrap up, there are 3 cases for a system of linear equations. Both are lines. It's either one solution where the 2 lines intersect at one point, or no solution, which means both lines are parallel, or infinite solutions, which means they're the exact same line. They're graphed over each other. In this case, they have infinite solutions. Right. So if they have one solution, this means they must have different slopes. If they have no solution, this means they must have same slope but different y-intercepts. Because if you look at these two, this line intersects the y-axis at a value, but this line must intersect at another value. Third case, اللي هم infinite solutions, they have same slope and same y-intercept as well. So not just the slope, it's slope and y-intercept. In this case, we're talking about the same line. So infinite number of solutions. So whenever I tell you this system has no solution, you think that they have same slopes because they're parallel. Whenever I tell you that this line has infinite solutions, this means that they still have the same slope, but also they have the same y-intercept. I hope that kind of makes sense. And if it does, let's try to apply شوية what you understood. If you have any questions before we do that, please ask them now.
طب مستر والاكس والواي اللي احنا طلعناهم من الايكويشنز اللي فوق دول
This solution.
دول يعتبروا السولوشن صح؟
Yes, this solution. دي البوينت اللي انا if I took this point of negative 3 و negative 2 if I substituted here او here it will work out. يعني ايه؟ يعني لو شلت الواي وحطيت مكانها negative 2 وشلت الاكس وحطيت مكانها negative 3 هلاقي ال left side of the equal is exactly equal to the right side. هنا هيطلع negative 2 وهنا هيطلع برضه negative 2. so الناحيتين قد بعض. if you try the other equation نفس الكلام. بص negative 3 وبعدين minus وبعدين مكان الواي حط negative 2 وتشوف هتطلع بكام. negative 3 plus 2 تطلع negative 1 equals negative 1. so it still satisfies. الكلمة دي اسمها the point satisfies both equations. sure?
ايوه.
perfect. يلا if you are ready please head again to Google Classroom and the one that says solving systems of linear equations it's 3-5. This one has a total of 6 questions still. They discuss everything we just discussed. Some questions will have infinite solutions, others will have only one and no solutions as well. Please try to work through those 6 questions within 12 minutes as usual. The 12, what's the infinite again? The infinite, ya Muhammad, is the one where they have the same slope and the same y-intercept. It's the same line. This one. Same slope and same y-intercept. It's just one case. اللي هو for example, I'll show you an equation of it or an example of it. So let's say y equals 2/3x plus 4. And let's say the other equation is negative 2x plus minus 3y equals negative 12. Now, if you check the first equation, the slope of it is 2/3. This is the slope. And if you check, what's wrong with my slope? If you check the y-intercept, it's 4. That's the y-intercept. The second equation as well, Muhammad, if you checked it, the slope here is negative 2/3, which is positive 2/3. And the y-intercept, it's negative 12/3, which is positive 4. So these have the same slope and the same intercept. So this system has infinite solutions. Does that answer your question? Perfect. 12 minutes. 12 minutes started now. Now if we check number 2. Number 2, I would personally prefer to solve this one using elimination. Why? Because they're already ordered the same order. The y's are under each other and the x's under each other and so on. Other than that, the y's have the same coefficient already, which means I don't need to do any modifications before just adding both equations to each other. Half plus negative 2 is negative 3/2x, and then positive y and negative y will cross each other. 1 plus 5 will give me just 6. I'll then move the 2 to the other side by multiplication, which will give me 12, and then divide by the negative 3 when it goes to the other side, and that should give me the value of x as negative 4. I do have the value of x. In order to get the value of y, I'll substitute this into any equation. I think the one that doesn't have the fraction is easier to think of. Calculate this, it will become 8 minus y equals 5. Move this there and move this there. You'll have 8 minus 5, which is 3, equals y. Now we have x and y. Remember, they want you to add x plus y, which in this case is negative 4 plus 3. So the answer is just negative 1. B is the correct answer. Any problems in this question? Are we all good? Moving on. Next one. This is similar to the example that I tried to explain at the beginning when we were explaining the systems of equations. They're telling me already that this system have no solution. That's the part where I start from. When they tell me a system has no solution, this rings على طول parallel lines, which means equal slopes. So I'll get the slope of the first one, and I'll get the slope of the second one, and I'll make them equal to each other. The slope of the first one is -2 over -k, which is +2 over k. The slope of the second one is -5 over -2, which is 5 over 2. This means that 2 over k must be equals to 5 over 2. We said earlier, whenever we have a fraction equal a fraction, we cross multiply. To make it a bit faster, we multiply these two and then divide by the third one right away. So k is equals to 4, which is 2 times 2, divided by 5. This is the value of k, where this system has no solution. Does this make sense?
لسه حطيتها 4.4 over 5 قال لي غلط 0.8 بس هي نفس الحاجة.
بالظبط it is the same thing again. فهو بس انا عشان ما حطيتش الاوبشن of 0.8 as one of the correct answers بس I'll do it. بعد كده number 4, they have infinitely many solutions. Infinitely many solutions means slopes and intercepts are equal. So you check the slopes first and then you check the intercepts. It's very clear in the first one, they have different slopes because of the different signs. So the first one cannot be the one. When you look at the second one, they do have the same slope, which is +2, but they have different y-intercepts, which is here 1 and 5. So these actually have no solution. These are parallel and have no solution. So this one is not the right one. Check C. If on a calculator you did -½ divided by -1 over 3, that would get you +3 over 2. And if you checked for the y-intercept, it's 1 over -1 over 3, which is -3. So I have the slope and I have the intercept. Now let's check the slope and the intercept in the other equation. The slope in this one is -3 over -2, which is +3 over 2. And if you check the y-intercept, it's 6 over -2, which is -3. They share the same slope and they share the same intercept. So C must be the correct answer. They're the same line. Makes sense? Are we good?
مستر هو احنا الواي بناخده بالساين اللي جنبه صح؟
Yes. الحاجة الوحيدة اللي بنغير لها الساين هي ال coefficient of the x. Finally, no, مش finally. So number 5. It says the system of equations above have no solution. What do I know about no solution? This is what I want you to notice. Where do I start the question? Not the process of how it's solved inside. This is something you can easily learn. This is something you can practice and come better at. What's most important is where do we start? Every single time I show you how do I do that. I start by looking at what I know. I saw no solutions, no solution for a system. What I know about that is that the slopes must be equal. So I'll get the slope of the first one, which is -a over -1. And I'll get the slope of the second one, which is -1 over -b. And these two are actually equal to each other because they said they have no solution. Now, what are they asking me to find? They're asking me to find a times b. So I will try to change the format of this بطريقة أغير فيها whatsoever إن أنا أخلي ال A and the B multiplied by each other. So actually if you cross multiplied, you will multiply the negative A by the negative B and it will become AB. And it is supposed to be equals to negative 1 times negative 1 يعني positive 1. So what's the value of A times B? Just 1. This is the answer. I'm okay if you want me to repeat this one. So please, 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 if you don't understand it, let me know. Repeat it. I will repeat it. What do you mean A and B is negative? B is, yes, it's negative. I'm supposed to take the, so I'm supposed to change the sign of whatever is next to the A. Okay, one by one. No solution. So slopes are equal. I'll get the slope of this one. What's the slope of this one? Negative the number next to the X over the number next to the Y with the same sign, which is negative 1. Now I'll get the slope of the other one because they're supposed to be equal. The slope of the other one is negative 1, which is the number next to the X, over the number next to the Y, which is negative B. Now, because they said they have no solution, this then means that these two must be equal to each other. Now, what I'm trying to find is A times B. So I will cross multiply. Negative A times negative B is positive A, B. And it's now equals to negative 1 times negative 1, which is positive 1. They're asking me what's the value of AB. This is the answer. Is it better شوية now?
مستر أنا فكرت فيها إن أنا لو عملت two equations minus.
Wait بقى معايا. It's a good idea يا عمر, but there's something important. When do we minus and subtract and add the equations? If we're trying to figure out the variables, the values of the variables itself, يعني الX بكام والY بكام.
ما أنا قلت يعني أحاول أخليهم minus، أشيل خالص الإكس، يعني إيه الرقم اللي يشيل الإكس ويشيل الواي؟
ماشي, ما هو if you think about it this way, ايه اللي يشيل الاكس والواي, they have to have the same coefficients, يعني هتمultiply اللي تحت by A واللي فوق by B. So it will get bigger. Whenever a solution or a method in your mind would make the calculations or the equations a bit more complicated, there's something wrong. ارجع تاني one step back. فاهم؟
ماشي.
دي حاجة كمان, again I'm telling you, we substitute or we eliminate or we add or subtract if we're trying to find the x and the y, but we're not here trying to find the x and the y. We're trying to find the coefficients. So the substitution method or elimination method والطرق دي of thinking does not work here. These are used to find the variables themselves. فاهم؟
أيوه.
فاهم يا جاد كمان, عشان جاد انت بتسألني على substitution. We actually here can't substitute. If we do, it will just become more complicated and it will get me an answer probably after like 7 steps or so. Why? Because the substitution and the elimination method both are used to find the variables themselves. We do not here want to find the variables, we just want to find the coefficients, which are the A and the B and so on. Makes sense يا جاد برضو? Now looking at number 6 بقى. System of equation, it has infinitely many solutions. What do I know about infinitely many solutions? Same slopes and y-intercepts. So I'll get the slope of the first one. The slope is mainly negative 2 over negative half, which is positive 4. While the y-intercept is 15 divided negative half, which is negative 30. So now I have the slope and the y-intercept. Let's try to figure out the other equation. For the slope, it's supposed to become negative A over negative 1 over 3. Now listen carefully away to this part. I just used the system of equations here. Yeah, I know. But that's why I'm telling you, Lulu, systems of equations would get you x's and y's, but not the a and b. I'm sorry. I want to discuss something important here. Now I'm dividing this by a fraction. What do we do when we have something like this? This number down here goes up by multiplication, which means it will become negative 3a over negative 1, which means it will become 3a. So negative a divided negative 1 over 3 is equivalent to 3a. Now let's check the y-intercept. It's actually 10 over negative 1 over 3, which is negative 30 already. So the y-intercepts are already equal to each other. We just want to make sure that these two are equal to each other now. So we want 3a to be equals to 4, which means then that a is equals to 4 over 3, which is equivalent to 1.3333, which is then b in this case. Is this one برضو clear or it's a bit harder? Thank you. I love it. If you do, please just do the exit ticket now and right now and get back, because I'll explain something but very tiny. I'll explain an example. So do the exit ticket until I prepare this, please.